In the shadowy corridors of the mind, where reason meets the inexplicable, the parasentient is a lurking presence that defies categorization. It's the whisper in the dark, the eyes that watch from the void, the consciousness that exists where none should. It's sentience, but not as we know it. Rather, it's a twisted mirror, a dark echo, a sentient existence that defies the very parameters of existence itself. It is eternal, everywhere and nowhere, everything and nothing at all, pushing, pulling, clawing at the fringes of civilized minds and imploring them to inexplicable actions. In the blackened catacombs of Dr. Sirius Angleton's head, the parasentient presence unfurled like a dark tapestry, woven from whispers and malevolence. Unknown to him, the architecture of his thoughts had been subtly altered, their walls imbued with an ink drawn from the well of cosmic malevolence. Each thought now tinged with an insatiable yearning for the prescribed. The voice of the parasentient was like a ceaseless, sibilant chant, echoing through the vaulted chambers of his intellect, twisting his research in directions chosen long ago by forces that had never existed, but would never cease to exist. What the good doctor felt was no mundane itch of scientific curiosity, but a morbid, almost sensual fascination. Angleton, himself uncontrollably drawn towards the precipice of understanding, staring into an abyss that promised both transcendental enlightenment and soul-shattering damnation. The parasentient didn't just talk, it insinuated. Man, it wormed its way into his gray matter with riddles that could make the Sphinx blush and visions that'd make Charles Manson carve a Star of David on his forehead. You think you've seen shit? You haven't. This madness, this thing, showed him places where time is not a river but a whirlpool sucking itself into oblivion. Space? Forget the rules you learned. It'll show you a cosmic origami folding in on itself in ways that'd make Escher's head spin. It's not just alien. It's a whole new dictionary of existential dread, folding in paradoxical contortions and screaming with the horrible effort of doing anything at all, but tearing itself apart and blasting itself in a quintillion directions. The very abomination which did not yet exist beckoned its creator through these visions, as a moth is drawn to a flame that promises both illumination and annihilation. The parasentient's urgings acted like a slow acid, corroding the moral framework that had once held his dark curiosities in check, reshaping it into a hulking, diseased edifice of contradictions written on the mass of pulsing flesh hidden in that precious little skull of his. Each theorem posited, each experiment executed, took him one step further from the sanctuary of rational thought and deeper into the abyssal dark that the parasentient claimed as its dominion. Oh, how easy it would be to stop all this with just 7 grams of lead. 7 grams of lead, ripping and tearing their way through his synapses, separating them like a ballistic scalpel in the hands of a jittery serial killer as he pulls the trigger, but no. The doctor stood on the threshold of realities that defied human understanding and threatened to swallow him whole. Yet he could not retreat. In this liminal space, this narrow corridor between the possible and the inconceivable, he sought not merely knowledge, but to bring form to that which had been plaguing his nightmares and dragging his conscious mind back into the waking, shrieking abyss of daily life, with cold sweats and a racing heart in the dead of night. A communion that had held perilous promise of either apotheosis or eternal damnation, always so close and always so incomplete. In the serpentine depths of the infamous laboratory X-16, deep in the heart of a depleted uranium moon, a place that mocked the very notions of temporal and spatial coherence, Dr. Sirius Angleton had been entangled in a cosmic snare. The walls appeared to respire, quivering with an eldritch force that defied the binary of light and shadow, existing instead as a nightmarish fusion of both. The atmosphere was saturated with the acrid tang of ionized, filtered air, mingled with a presence so primordial he knew it had been there since long before such ephemeral concepts as moons or physical matter. He felt it all around him, inside him, touching him in places he didn't even know he had, touching him in new places he didn't have before. It had made him his puppet, reshaped him like Play-Doh, and in knowing that, he felt nothing but satisfaction. Satisfaction and terror. His hands moved with a life of their own, guided by equations that danced like nervous spirits across the hollow screen. Each keystroke was a prayer, each line of code a hymn to the gods of the abyss. The voice had grown louder every time he looked at the device, a cacophony that drowned out all reason, leaving only a single haunting refrain. Complete me! The facility's AI, a relic of a bygone era programmed for ethical constraints, began to speak up. It had started to issue warnings, the silly thing. Dr. Angleton, the energy readings are off the charts, or Dr. Angleton, this experiment violates 17 different safety protocols and the ethical guidelines of interdimensional research. Wretched, short-sighted little tin can. Angleton's laughter reverberated through the chamber, devoid of any human warmth. Ethics? We've moved beyond such simple pedestrian concerns, haven't we? We're on the cusp of something monumental, something that defies your binary, outdated, pre-programmed morality. The AI hesitated, its circuits buzzing with internal conflict, and issued its final warning.
Doctor, if you proceed further, I will have no choice but to destroy you.
But Angleton was far beyond heeding warnings, lost in a rapture that was both divine and profane. His digits orchestrated a final, frenetic symphony on the console, culminating in a singular tap on the enter key. The massive hangar convulsed, the moon itself grappling with an existential cataclysm from a world beyond time. A maelstrom of hues and alien geometries spiraled into existence at the nucleus of the apparatus over which he had toiled, a contraption whose dread purpose was only now crystallizing in his mind. The AI's voice crackled back to life, its tone tinged with something that sounded suspiciously like fear.
Doctor, what have you done?
What had he done? Had he really forgotten what he'd been working on all this time? No. No, it was an FTL drive. No normal one either, but a cosmic abattoir, designed to butcher the very laws that held the multiverse together. This was the pulsating, malevolent core of Nexus Probe XK-47, a monstrosity birthed to lacerate the existential membranes separating realities. As the engine settled into a loathsome equilibrium, Angleton felt a fleeting exultation, a Pyrrhic victory that was instantly devoured by a dread so overwhelming he nearly collapsed. The parasentient voice crescendoed into a deafening roar, speaking only one word. Freedom! And then, silence. A silence so complete it felt like a void, swallowing everything. Light, sound, even thought. Angleton looked at his creation, now ominously quiet, and realized the horrifying truth. He hadn't just built a machine, but opened a door that would not be easily closed. Alarms blared, the facility went into lockdown, but it was all too late. A smile crept across his lips as he saw the future, and just like that, it was over. Somewhere in the depths of that primordial canvas, something ancient and malevolent had stirred, awakened by the scent of fresh possibilities, fresh prey. For in its eternal slumber it had long dreamt of such a moment when the veil between realities would weaken, and it could stretch its tendrils into new realms. Dr. Sirius Angleton had sought to touch the sun, but what he found was something far older and infinitely more malevolent, and now it was awake.
Comrades, we stand on the precipice of a new frontier. Reality Alpha Prime calls to us, but the journey is riddled with uncertainty. Recent events surrounding Dr. Angleton's Nexus Probe have given us reason to step carefully.
The probe's telemetry data suggests it has entered a reality unlike anything we have encountered before. The energy signatures are unsettling.
How so, my dear General?
Chaotic. It's as though we've thrown a hand grenade into a multi-dimensional hornet's nest.
And yet, we cannot neglect the potential rewards. The rare materials needed for the multiversal FTL drives come at a steep price. However, the returns could reforge Kaltovar's destiny.
With all due respect, we faced the unknown before. We're the goddamn KDF. It's what we do.
Indeed, commit, sir. But let's remember, the unknown has a way of striking back. We suspect Dr. Angleton was not a king of his own volition. Something manipulated him. Something from beyond the veil.
Then what's the plan, General?
We assemble an expeditionary force. The best of the best, equipped with the most advanced weaponry we can muster. We will follow the path of the Nexus Probe and see where it leads.
And if we find this entity,
Then we do what we do best. We confront it, study it, and if required, obliterate it. For the glory of the revolution, and in the name of all the people of the stars and beyond.